Hi everybody, before we start the show, I just wanted to let you know I'm joined by a very exciting guest right now. It is world-acclaimed author, Andrew Hunter-Murray. Hello, Andrew.
Hello.
You've written a book, I hear.
Yes, I've written a book. It's called A Beginner's Guide to Breaking and Entering. It's out in paperback now.
Yes, I've actually read it, and not even just because I'm friends with him, because it's such a fun read, and it's actually not a guide to how to break into a house and burgle it, which is obviously what I was hoping for. It's even better than that. Tell us about it.
Well, it's about a young guy called Al who lives in lovely, empty second homes when the real-life owners are away. He doesn't break things, he doesn't steal things, he just makes his way in, lives in these gorgeous places, and then gets out again. And this book is the story of when he and his friends break into the wrong home on the wrong day, someone ends up dead, not his fault, and things just get more complicated from there. It's a caper.
It is, plus a little bit of satire on the housing market, which every good book needs. And obviously he joins up with a fun motley crew of fellow breakers and enterers. It really is such a fun book to read. And I believe it's available in bookshops. Is that right?
It's available in all bookshops, and even better, if you're an audio person, it's in a 2-for-1 deal on Audible. That and one of my other books, The Last Day, are both included in the current Audible deal, which is lasting a few more days, where you can get 2 books for 1 credit.
Do it. Go. Listen to the book and then read the book. Do both. It really is worth it. And speaking of guests, we had a fantastic guest on today. We had so much fun with her in the episode that you're about to hear. It was the excellent comedian Rosie Holt, who I'm sure many of you are familiar with. And once you've listened to this, if you're in the market for some very sharp skewering of what's going on in politics today, you have to check out her podcast, which is called Non-Censored. On the other hand, if what you fancy is a very witty satire on the last government, then check out her book, which is called Why We Were Right. So that is Non-Censored, the podcast, or Why We Were Right, the book. But for now, enjoy the show.
On with the podcast.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of No Such Thing as a Fish, a weekly podcast coming to you from the QI offices in Holborn. My name is Dan Schreiber. I am sitting here with Anna Tashinsky, Andrew Hunter-Murray, and Rosie Holt, and once again we have gathered round the microphones with our favorite facts from the last 7 days, and in no particular order, here we go. Starting with fact number 1, and that is Rosie.
My fact this week is all the werewolves in the film Howling 2 are actually monkeys because the wrong costumes were delivered.
So much to unpack here. You said Howling 2, like every listener's going to know.
Everyone knows about the famous film Howling 2. I think somewhere Howling 2 was called the worst sequel of all time.
Those people clearly never saw Howling 8.
And you're a fan, right, Rosie?
Yeah, sort of. I'm fascinated by it.
Okay.
So I don't want to spoil too much for people who are really excited about watching Howling 2. But it leaves off where Howling 1 finishes, where, spoiler alert, the female lead turns into a werewolf and she is killed. And at the beginning of Howling 2, it's her funeral. And the best line ever is where Christopher Lee pops up, because why not? And he says, I'm afraid your sister was a werewolf. And the guy goes, God damn it, that's my sister you're talking about.
Yeah, and he says it at the funeral.
Yes.
I mean, he turns up at the funeral, no one knows who he is.
No.
He's just a weird guy.
Just a weird old guy.
Stands at the back and then says that. And you can understand, we haven't led up to, like, did you know there are more things on Earth than are dreamt of? You know, like, werewolves exist. As far as I can tell,
No,
this is fresh news
it's a cold
to this guy.
open.
I must say, because I think I might be the person on the planet who's watched Howling 2 most recently. I finished 1 hour ago, and then I came straight directly here.
It's really good.
So, and it's really good watching it with the knowledge of what happened with these costumes. It was a mix-up. They were Planet of the Apes.
Yes, can we get
TV
that's the
series.
costume
Yeah.
story. Yes,
Costumes.
Rosie, go
So
for it.
basically, they were sent the costumes. The costumes were late. When they opened the costumes, it was actually from the Planet of the Apes TV show. And then good old Christopher Lee saved the day because he said This is what we're going to do, Philippe. That's the director. We're going to shoot a scene where we simply explain that werewolves go through 3 phases: a human phase, a monkey phase, and then a werewolf phase. And that will solve everything.
No.
And it did.
And it did.
Yes.
And that's what they do.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
So do they look like monkeys?
They look
Yes,
exactly
they
like
look exactly
monkeys.
like monkeys
It's-
from Planet of the Apes.
It's really confusing. And they had shot it all in the dark, and then later on, once they got a werewolf head, they splice in lots of shots of a random werewolf head crossing a screen. It's terrific. It's so good. I mean, there's so much in this film.
Yes, and there's lots of great little facts. So the other thing about the costumes was there's a threesome scene with where they're all werewolves and they're all having sexy fun. But if you probably remember, Andrew.
I remember the scene very well.
Yes, it's not a terribly, vigorous threesome. They're sort of tentatively kind of stroking each other and growling, and it's because so they'd had to be covered in hair for the costumes, and this took like 8 hours. And then they found out that when you touched each other, the hair came off.
Yeah.
So therefore, they were having to not touch each other because they realised if they actually did an orgy, a film orgy. All their costumes would fall off.
Because it wasn't a costume. It was them naked
It
for
was
8
them
hours
naked for 8
with them
hours.
putting little bits of
Oh,
hair
was it
on
them
them.
naked? Like,
Yeah,
it
sorry, I
wasn't
didn't
the
explain
monkey
that very
costume
well.
and
It would have made more sense to put them in the monkey costumes for this, but I guess they thought because they're sort of naked, it's still going to be sexy.
It's not quite as sexy as the monkey costume.
Yeah.
It's the
No.
hairiest and most chaste threesome ever committed to
It's
film. It's
extraordinary.
a rare double award. Rosie, is this one of your favourite films or something?
It's not one of my favourite films, but I do have a real soft spot for
Because
it.
it's genuinely so bad it's good.
It is so bad it's good.
After the first 10 minutes, I thought, I can't believe we're going to cover this in case someone watches it. And now, I say watch it.
Yeah,
Do you?
totally.
I mean, it has. The weird thing about Christopher Lee is that he's a good actor who's only done shit films, with a few exceptions, obviously.
Lord of the Rings, Man with the Golden Gun, The Wicker Man, one of the greatest horror films ever made. Yeah.
So he's done some good films, but he's done a lot of really bad films.
He has.
I think the only reason he did this movie was because he realised he hadn't done a werewolf movie. So he thought, okay,
And
I
thought,
need to
this
get
is
that.
the one
This
I
is
need
the
to
one.
do.
Howling 2.
This is the one.
But the filming of this one sounds amazing because Christopher Lee, we must have mentioned before, is like an amazing character.
Yeah.
He had this great war past where he worked for the SOE, the Special Operations Executive in the War, which was like the Secret Service under Churchill. No one really knows what he did there because he was never allowed to talk about it. But it seems like the one person he confided in was the director of this film, who was called Philippe Mora.
Yeah.
And
Because the Nazi hunter.
Yes.
Yeah.
But apparently they landed in Czechoslovakia, which it was at the time, where it was being filmed. And they got to the airport, and there was this huge crowd of people who were all like cheering and waving and giving this hero's
Wait,
welcome.
hang on.
Yeah, go on.
Quick query.
Go.
He's a super secret war hero and Nazi hunter, and yet he's so globally famous as a Nazi hunter that everyone in the Czech Republic knows who he is at the airport.
He must have been like James Bond, where he just didn't hide
I mean,
his
is
reason.
that totally plausible?
No, there were elements of his war past that were known at that point because it was the 80s by then, and basically it seemed to be widely accepted that as part of his spying war history, he'd been involved in the assassination of Reinhard Heydrich, who was the highest
come on.
ranking Nazi ever assassinated by the
Wow.
West. So he landed in Prague and he got this hero's welcome, and the director was like, "One do that's for," and Christopher Lee was like, "I'm going to stop you there. It'll be for me."
For my Nazi killing.
I have seen a couple of stories saying, did he exaggerate his war record at all? And I haven't had a time to properly look into them, and I just hope he didn't.
I didn't want to be
If he
skeptical.
got
but
such
yeah.
a hero's welcome,
Yeah.
surely he didn't exaggerate any of it.
Yeah, but
He
it
was
could have
also a
been.
globally famous film star at the time. They might be
I
doing any old
that's-
stuff.
I don't think
No?
that's
Okay,
relevant.
okay.
I don't think that's to do with it.
Czechs are above that.
But because it was filmed in Czechoslovakia, Christopher Lee and Sybil Danning?
Yeah.
Yeah, they both were getting followed the whole time while they were shooting by 2 creepy men who would sit in the corner when they ate in the restaurant in the evening.
As in like Iron Curtain
Yes.
spies or
Iron
secret
Curtain
police.
Smiles.
Iron Curtain smiles.
Because they did, yeah, they did. They were like,
Smiles.
they were making phone calls back home, and they could hear them like in the background, just like men breathing and coughing as they were listening in on the
They weren't great
conversations.
spies, were they, that the Soviet Union had? No wonder it fell apart if it didn't have its shit together to stay quiet on a phone call. Just listening
Because
to
I
you.
think they're
Local
using the
reps.
Christopher Lee tell you I'm a Nazi murderer process. They don't care.
The lead actress is Sybil Danning, as you just
Yeah.
said. There is a bit of the film, a slightly sexy bit, where she rips her shirt off. It's a very charged scene, you
Yes.
know.
Yeah.
But she apparently had been asked to do this in lots of films because she was very attractive and she was a bit bored of it. And she said, do you know what? I think I'd like to do just one topless scene or even one topless shot entirely in this film. Is that okay? And the producer said, yeah, great. Anyway, she turns up.
She said, I want to be limited to one.
Yes.
Yeah, she just wants to do
one.
this once, which happened. She then turns up to the premiere of the film where the closing sequence of the credits uses that shot a further 17 times for absolutely no reason.
Yeah, it has on repeat, like exposing her chest.
No. Wow.
Yeah.
And
It's like a sort of sexy gif.
If you give them an inch, they will take a mile.
But it's so Maura, the director, back to him for a second, he didn't know they were going to do that to Denning, the actress. So he actually...
Because they were friends, weren't
They were friends, and he kind of, at the end of the movie, they brought in some other people to do a final edit on it, and part of that edit was throwing in 17 shots of her topless during the credit sequence, and he was really pissed off by that. So he then goes on, he says, I want to make Howling 3, because I want to fix the reputation of what this did.
Because of that credit sequence.
He was just pissed
The
off
whole
with...
film, I think. You need a lot of rehab work on your career. I don't think the credit sequence is the main problem. It's problematic, but it's... Oof.
Yeah, so Howling 3 sounds amazing. Howling 3, The Marsupials. This then
completely
is
different.
set in Australia, has no reoccurring characters, has no plot that is connected to anything else. In it, the humans that are transformed into the Howling have pouches like marsupials.
Amazing.
It sounds pretty amazing. He generally, just in praise of Maura, because he's an Aussie film director, and I'd never heard of him, but his list of movies is extraordinary. I'm really obsessed with a movie that he directed called Pterodactyl Women from Beverly Hills.
Wow.
I know, right? So listen to the plot. Paleontologist Dick Chandler discovers a dinosaur egg, prompting an eccentric witch doctor named Salvador Dali to put a curse on Chandler's wife, Pixie, causing her to slowly transform into a pterodactyl. After Pixie lays an egg, Dick tracks down Salvador Dali and apologizes, and the curse is lifted. Now, Barry Humphries is in this movie. It's like a proper movie. I can't wait to see that. Barry Humphries is in it.
There's a bit where Christopher Lee says in Howling 2, right, there are some sort of king werewolves and queen werewolves. They cannot be killed with silver. There's an oh no moment. Oh no, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
Then he just says they can be killed with titanium, which, although a slightly harder metal to get hold of, was very much easily available at the time. It's stunning.
Is that a copyright thing with
no idea.
Bram Stoker's people?
I've no idea.
I read an interview with the director, and he was really so because it got so panned, and he's so enthusiastic about it. And everything he got asked, he would go, "Thank you for asking that." And one of the things he said, which I liked, was in the poster, there's Sybil Danning. She's wearing these sunglasses, which obviously appear in the movie. And that came about because he said that she came along and she had conjunctivitis. And they were like, what? What were we doing? He was like, don't worry, you're a werewolf. And werewolves can wear sunglasses indoors if they want to.
With the advantage that your identity is slightly concealed now.
I read that somewhere that became very influential in the movie industry. So if you think of the Lost Boys, the vampire movies and so on, they're all wearing glasses. And according to numerous people, that was a direct influence. It suddenly was cool to do it.
It's hard
So
to
it
imagine
worked.
this film had
This
any
was a
influence.
trendsetter.
I think it might have in the 80s. You know,
Yeah.
Christopher Lee's in it. It was a proper release. It's part of a massive franchise.
Yeah. I was just looking at monkey costumes.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And guerrilla movies used to be a really big thing in the 20s and 30s. They were a cultural preoccupation. I suppose they are now,
Like
actually.
King
Why?
Kong, anything else?
It's all leading up to King Kong.
Right.
Basically, they started with normal-sized gorillas, and then they worked their way up to Kong. But we still have loads of Kong stuff now, and we're still having Planet of the Apes. So this is a permanent societal thing. But there was one guy called Charles Gamora who was known as the king of the gorilla men in the 20s and 30s, partly because he had his own suit. So any film that needed a gorilla, get Charles Gamora on set now. And he'd done a bit of he'd seen he was very convincing in his suit, and he was the right sort of height, and he was he been to the San Diego Zoo and sort of observed them, and so he was trying to do it properly. He was going method. Anyway, in 30 years, he was in 43 films, 39 of which involved him being a gorilla.
Right.
The others, he played 2 aliens, 1 bear, and 1 cannibal.
Same suit with bits sewn onto it?
Same suit. Oh, I don't know. But it just sounds great. He's in one called The Monster and the Girl, where a gorilla receives the brain of a man who is seeking revenge because he was wrongfully executed.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the brain goes
amazing.
into the gorilla.
That's really
That's
good.
very good.
I mean,
I really hope modern Hollywood is still using the. Well, he's got a suit.
Andy Serkis just has a great costume library.
That's how Downey Jr. got Iron Man. Stop the podcast.
Stop the podcast.
Hey everyone, this week's episode of Fish is sponsored by ExpressVPN.
Yes, ExpressVPN. Dan, imagine you're a spy.
Okay.
You want to go incognito, but your incognito disguise is not good enough. And lots of people can tell straight away that you're a spy. Maybe you got a hat that just says spy on it.
Well, and my name that I introduced myself as is Incognito, and that's there's a dead giveaway.
Well, Dan Incognito, that is a very laboured metaphor to explain that if you're on incognito mode on your device, then that is not enough to hide your browsing history. All your online activity is still 100% visible to a ton of third parties unless you use ExpressVPN.
That's right. So ExpressVPN will allow you to take off that hat, get a new surname, and you will be able to browse the internet without anyone spotting that you're in the room.
Absolutely. It reroutes 100% of your traffic through secure, encrypted servers. So easy to use, and it works on all devices, phones, laptops, tablets, all sorts of stuff. And it's rated #1 by top tech reviewers like CNET and The Verge.
Amazing. Okay, if you want to protect your privacy online today, you can do that by visiting expressvpn.com/fish. That's expressvpn.com/fish. And by using that, you can get yourself an extra 4 months for free.
Absolutely. So we all use ExpressVPN because security online is very important to us. And if you want to do it too, then go to expressvpn.com/fish and get an extra 4 months for free. Okay, on with the podcast.
On with the show. Okay, it is time for fact number 2, and that is my fact. My fact this week is that the author, Elizabeth Gaskell, died in the middle of saying, "When I am dead," but only got as far as "when."
So how do people know?
This is really interesting. We should just say very quickly before we get into it, this is Elizabeth Gaskell, Mrs. Gaskell, as she was often known. She was an English novelist. She wrote short stories. She was a biographer, most famously having written a book about Charlotte Bronte. Maybe we'll get onto
Although
that.
that's certainly not she's most famously wrote
Yes.
brilliant works of fiction.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Mary Barton.
Yes, she was one of our great Victorian novelists.
But at the time, she was most famous for writing biography.
Her obituary
Yes.
basically
Yeah.
said, Charlotte Bronte's biographer,
Yeah.
dead.
Yes.
When?
Exactly. So what happened was, this is 1865. She is 55 years old. She's at her home, which is a sort of secret home that she's purchased.
Yeah, I feel like we'll go into that. Because that story
I'm
is-
just leaving some little plot moments as we go along. So she's at her house, she's sitting with her daughters, and suddenly she keels over and she dies, but she dies mid-anecdote. And we know what happened because of a reverend called Reverend Hawkes, who recounted the story as was told to him by one of the daughters. So she was with her daughters and her son-in-law. She was telling a story, and she says, the judge said, when? And then that's when she passed away. Now, she was telling an anecdote. Fortunately, one of the 4 people there had already heard this anecdote, presumably so many times that they knew exactly what was coming next. And the line that was meant to come next was, the judge said, when I'm dead, Lady Crompton can visit Rome.
A classic line.
Classic line.
We've all
Everybody
laughed.
laughed.
Yeah.
I think you can see where she was going in the conversation, because a little bit of backstory is that Justice Crompton, who had just died, he was her son-in-law's dad, and I think her son-in-law's present. So the guy she's talking about is the person who said, when I am dead. So I imagine she was going on to say, so now lucky Lady Crompton can book her flight to Rome, because,
right.
it was relevant.
Yeah.
It's funny because he is dead, so it's got a bit
Yeah.
of gallows humour to
So
it.
you've sort of solved the end of the anecdote.
I think that's what's
Yeah.
happened. Yeah, it's like Edwin Drood. It's finally been revealed.
Thank
Yeah.
God.
How great, though, to sort of not be lost on that last word. Like, we should all practice our final words with someone in confidence beforehand, so that if we
beforehand,
do
so
go
we know.
mid-sentence...
I mean, I will be saying something I've already said loads of times already, because I'm down to a limited stock of anecdotes now, and just people know my things.
Do you think it was a bit of a letdown, though, when they said, well, she started by saying well, and then someone went, no, actually, she's told that several times before.
Yeah. Bit of a bore, actually, Lizzie. Always wanging about the same stuff. That's probably why old people repeat anecdotes all the time, isn't it? Just to make sure that once they're saying their anecdote, that we know where they were going with it.
Very wise.
Yeah.
That's very wise.
Yeah.
Has anyone read
I've read Mary Barton. Thank you.
So-
Read North and South.
Thank
I
you.
think I've read North and South or Mary Barton.
Or have you just seen the TV series?
No, I'm gonna be a little bit heretical. I
Yeah.
don't think she's all that. I mean, she's good. Like, she's good. They're good novels, but they're very Victorian. They're a bit, they haven't aged brilliantly.
I think,
I
God, I think
thought-
they really have. I think she's
they
much
have
more
too.
radical than people.
Yes.
That's
because
what I don't
also,
like. Yeah.
Mary Barton, it's a sort of a working class character, and it's very much in that life, which was, not so much the done thing back then.
I completely agree. I think like her and Dickens are two people who really engage with people who are having a shit old time in life more than almost any other Victorian novelist, because they're all about factory workers, the strife between bosses and labourers.
Yeah.
Not into that though, are you, Andy?
I like reading about aristocrats with minor social problems. That's my thing.
Because she did write about that stuff. It was really controversial, wasn't it? In her community as well, particularly where she was representing these characters. Because I believe I actually haven't read any of her stuff, but it sounds as if the other writers of the time who were in the same field, so Bronte, a friend of hers, Austen, they would write about a period slightly gone, whereas she was writing in the present.
Interesting.
And then that was a bit more controversial. And there's a few books. She had one book called Ruth, which was very controversial, and they actually burnt copies in her local church.
Yes, members of her own church.
Yeah, which is
Why did they do that?
because it was
It's
debauch.
it's about a fallen woman.
Oh, yes, they shouldn't be.
And it has
about.
a threesome scene actually with wolves dressed as gorillas.
That's what fallen women do.
Yes.
Gaskell wasn't allowed into her husband's library. He had to get books out for her. It's very weird.
Really?
Local
Yeah.
library, not like his personal. Like
Exactly. No,
Yeah.
not as she was allowed. She was allowed the run of the house at home.
Yeah.
But no,
She
he was a
wasn't
member of the
allowed in his
library.
like Bluebeard.
What's that?
Go on.
You know the tale of Bluebeard where he marries this young woman and he says you can go in any room you like except for this one.
You're talking
With the
about Beauty and the Beast.
No, I'm not talking about Bluebeard.
Are you talking the pirate?
So what
or
happened? What's
no,
in the room?
everybody.
Kurt Vonnegut novel?
No, it's a very famous tale that none of you have heard
I
of.
think I know what's in the room, but you say it. You say it. What's in the room?
So she finally, because he keeps going away, so she's wandering around all these rooms, and she gets impatient. She goes, I just want to know what's in the mystery room. So she uses the skeleton key. I think it's the skeleton key. Maybe I've embellished that. Okay. And she opens it, and inside are all the dead bodies of his previous wives.
Oh.
Don't draw attention to it, you idiot man.
But then he comes back and he goes, oh dear, looks like I'm going to have to kill you too because you opened
Another
the
notch
door.
in the skeleton key.
Yes, another notch in the
Very nice.
skeleton
Yes, it's a
key.
funny old story, isn't it?
Where's it
Yes.
from? Is it an author we know? Is it like almost like a folk tale?
No, it's very old. It's a
very
very ye old tale.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, that wasn't the case in Gaskell's husband's library, as far as I know.
Well, you don't know because no one went in there.
That's true.
But the thing about her, I think, which kind of annoys people or bores them, is that she actually was really normal. And the thing that's quite nice about her is that she just basically had a really happy life. She was quite conventional in how she lived. She married this vicar.
Wait, or was she?
Or what do you know the hidden history of
The
her
hidden-
orgies? The
Her
mass
werewolf
orgies.
well, wasn't there a rumour going round when she died that she and her husband were separated and that's why she was in the separate house?
Well, I do think that that's got weight, so I'm glad other people who aren't gossips like me have said it.
yes,
Because
I'm not a gossip. I only bring the facts.
You're an intellectual.
So separate house. She bought her own
The house she dies in.
Yes.
Yeah, without telling her husband.
And the story is that it was a surprise for her husband, like a retirement home. Oh, we're going to move to the country, this lovely mansion. And she was in the house with all her daughters saying, isn't Daddy going to be delighted? But I
so all
agree,
the
it's a
children
bit-
are there as well.
Yeah,
all
I
the kids
mean,
are there.
which is why slightly the story suggests that is what was going on. But
Like, is he at home at the breakfast table at House One? I think it's very quiet this morning, isn't it?
God, they're sleeping in today.
Yeah.
I bet they were separated.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you reckon?
Yeah, I think so.
Let's spread that.
Or it was a secret death house.
Sorry? Is
She
that a
thought, my time is up. I
Yes.
like how animals like to go and die
Yeah.
under a log or
Yeah.
something. She thought, I'm going to die in a house that's
God,
not
it's a
my
huge
own.
faff to buy a full house, isn't
Yeah,
it?
but
to
houses were
die in?
cheaper then. I think it was probably easier to do.
A few years ago,
Yeah.
a university got a collection of letters that were written by someone who was friends with Elizabeth Gaskell, and they were having correspondence. And in it, Gaskell predicted her death that year. She said to her, I'm not going to make it to the end of the year.
So I better buy a house.
Yeah. But perhaps she didn't know that she was doing so well. You know, she could sense it.
There is an argument in Gaskell's life for the secret house that she bought was in Alton in Hampshire, which is where
Jane Austen lived
for the last years of her life.
And Alton Towers, is that there?
No, it's in a completely different place. It's hundreds of miles away.
Okay.
But Gaskell grew up in Stratford-upon-Avon, home of
Shakespeare.
So is this a ley
You
line?
guys weren't quick enough.
So is this an argument for ley lines in terms of literary creativity? Probably.
There's certainly something going on, isn't there?
Yeah.
Certainly, I think. Do you know she gave us the word squiffy to mean drunk?
Really?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
I know.
I love that fact.
I love the sound of her, I have to say. As in, when you read about her social life, there is this comparison, I think, with Dickens, where Dickens was partying all the time. He was everywhere. He went around the world. That's exactly what Gaskell did in a time where it felt like that would have been much harder. She was a mother of, how many children did she have in total?
I think she was pregnant 7 times. A couple of the children didn't live.
Okay,
but, yeah,
right.
5 daughters and 1 son, survived, which is quite a lot.
That is, yeah. She was writing, she wrote, quite a few novels, a lot of short stories, a biography. She traveled the world. She was constantly said to be dancing half the night at parties. She was a real socialite. I think she sounds really fun.
I think you would have gotten along with her very well.
Yeah,
Yes,
it
she
feels
was a real
like
butterfly.
She even wrote one of her novels while she was staying with Florence Nightingale. Like she just touches all these little elements of the past, which I really love.
She sounds like someone who deserves to have been let in the library.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, though.
I
it's
think-
a slippery slope, isn't
I
it?
think she should have been allowed in that library.
You let them in libraries one day, the next
Just
day...
go in there willy-nilly.
Yeah, exactly.
Getting squiffy.
I have another theory about her that I think we should spread this gossip. Her brother John, and if you read about him, he was about 7 years older than her. So her mum died when she was 1, and she was sent to live with an aunt who she loved, and she lived in this very female-dominated community. It was all women. But she did have this older brother who still lived with her dad, and they wrote to each other a lot, and he was really fond of her. And then he joined the Merchant Navy, and they kept writing to each other. And then he just vanishes. And everyone says he was either abducted by pirates in India or his ship sank. But she, after writing him for years, she's 17, never... Bluebeard, yes, kidnapped.
A Bluebeard and
Kidnapped him.
Blackbeard brothers or friends.
They must know each other.
They're naughty cousins.
Suspicious. And she never mentioned it. She never mentioned him to her kids, except to say, I don't really remember him.
Really?
But of course you'd remember him. He
Too
was
painful,
young.
or
Well, I don't know.
what's your theory? You seem to be driving at something here, Anna.
I think
Is he in the library?
I think his corpse was on the shelves. I think maybe he ran away with like an Indian lady and told only her, and she could never tell anyone.
That's a good theory.
Yeah, I like that.
Just on people who wrote anonymously.
Yeah.
Because Gaskell was always by a lady, would appear on her title pages. I think she was Mrs. Gaskell later in her career. But I didn't really realise how common this was. So between 1750 and 1790, 80% of all novels did not list an author on the title page.
Really?
Male and
Wow.
female writers.
Right.
It just wasn't a thing. For women, it was because it was... it was a bit risque to be writing a novel.
Yeah.
It was too similar to prostitution, which, I mean, that's genuinely the theory I read. But by a lady was a good phrase to use because it showed that the author was someone of a decent class,
Yeah.
So Jane Austen was by a lady, and then later on by the same lady who brought you Sense and Sensibility. That was genuinely that. And she never saw her own name on a title page, Jane Austen, which is kind of tragic.
Yeah, it's sad.
It
Do you think
is.
other books at the time were written by a different lady?
Not that lady.
I can't believe it's not a lady. Yeah. But all of it, like Tristram Shandy, Byron stuff, Jonathan Swift, it's all anonymous.
Really?
Yeah.
I suppose the novel was quite new then, wasn't it? Maybe it was still a bit like, this might not go down very well in history.
It was risque, definitely. And it was quite fun as well. So Jonathan Swift, he sent his stuff to a publisher via someone else. So there was no way of tracing it back to him.
Really?
okay.
Yeah. And then when the printer said, look, who is the author of Gulliver's Travels? Swift and his friend Alexander Pope, they pretended, I don't know who wrote this. They would even write letters to each other privately saying, who wrote this Gulliver's Travels book? Completely between themselves.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's so funny. They just, it was a bit of a game.
But was there a royalty thing that they would still have in place?
Yeah, I guess you could be paid anonymously quite easily at the time.
There's just one person who's called like Anna Lady who's just funneling all the money accidentally sent to her.
Gaskell obviously gave all her money to her husband at first. In fact, I think it went to him automatically because married women weren't allowed to earn money.
Really don't approve of this husband, I tell you. He came with his library.
Apparently it was very affectionate. I was listening to
And that's why she bought a secret house.
I think it was a little joke. He was the one who suggested she write to get over the death of her 1-year-old son who'd very sadly died. And he said, as to help you with grieving, write a novel, probably not suspecting she was going to become a world famous novelist. And yes, when she got paid, it went straight to him, and he sort of jokingly pocketed it, saying, well, women shouldn't be earning in control of the purse strings, should they? I'll give you some pocket money. But I think it was all meant...
Was he saying that?
All meant in jest. It was all meant in jest.
It was a different time.
It's so hard to know when it's written, isn't it? You don't know the tone.
Yeah, it's really... They needed more emojis, I think.
There you go. How much of history would be different if emojis existed?
I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat. Winky face.
Okay, it is time for fact number 3, and that is Anna.
My fact this week is that one of Ovid's tips for seducing a woman you fancied was to pretend you'd seen dust on her cleavage and then go to brush it off.
It's a great line, isn't it? Oh, you've got a very dusty cleavage. It's what every woman wants to hear.
Yeah. Anna, when you say go to brush it off, follow through and actually brush it off?
Follow through, yes.
Right.
So these were his exact words. Go to and then complete the brush.
Complete.
Do you think it's like an updated thing of a downdated thing? Because now it's if you've got you've got an eyelash on your cheek, isn't it? And then the man removes the eyelash.
Yes.
You know this man. Come on.
I have a pocket full of eyelashes that I try and subtly sprinkle onto people's cheeks.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Absolute classic. Absolute classic.
Have you had that tried on you? Does it work?
Oh, you've got an eyelash on your...
And
then they lift it off your face.
What harm is that
And
eyelash
then they
doing
go
there?
make a wish. So maybe it's the same. It was like
yes.
you've got some dust on your cleavage, and then they hold it out and go make a wish.
Make a wish. Blow on it like a dandelion.
Yes.
I think this book of Ovid's might contain a lot of things that you guys could try out, and I'd love to hear the results. So this is a book called Ars Amatoria, and Ovid was a Roman writer. He wrote this in year 2 AD.
I know, so it got in early.
Box fresh. Yeah.
Got in early, so a couple of millennia ago. His exact words were, as often happens, if perchance a little dust should fall on the bosom of the fair, it must be brushed off with your fingers. And if there should be no dust, still brush off that none.
Brilliant.
It would work for me. I'd like it.
He has so much good stuff in there. He also said, let it be your object to please the husband of the fair one that you fancy. I suppose we're assuming.
Oh, this is naughty.
Okay.
Because once made a friend, he will be more serviceable for your designs. So I think, you'll get invitations to the house a little bit more.
Not like come in and have a hairy threesome.
No, he did
Me and
specify
my wife.
that. He does specify no bad gorilla costumes and no threesomes.
I mean, he was a very risque writer at the time. He was what's the word? He was not evicted. He was deported.
Yeah.
He was banned, exiled.
Exiled. Yeah.
Exiled to the worst place in the world at the time, he claimed. Seems to have been a completely normal city in modern-day Romania, but compared with Rome, I guess it was rubbish.
Okay.
And for the last 10 years of his life, he spent there writing the Tristii, which were basically sad letters saying, please can I come back to Rome, to everyone he knew in Rome, including the emperor. But I think he was evicted because he was quite a libidinous, quite a licentious writer, lots of sexy stuff in the Ars Amatoria, lots of love poetry, but it's quite mysterious why he was actually kicked out.
Yeah, we don't know.
Yeah.
No one knows for
Yeah.
sure. There might have been a scandal involving the daughter of the emperor, Augustus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Julia,
Ooh.
I think.
Yeah,
Maybe
that's
his
one thing.
granddaughter.
It might have been
yeah.
a general back to basics campaign that Augustus was running because Rome was getting a little bit seedy, and Augustus didn't really like that, and he was trying to raise public morals a bit, and Ovid was still out there saying, "Get Dustin," all of that.
don't know.
So it's really unclear why he
Get Justin. Why?
was bang, and the dirt
Man,
is
throw some
gone.
dust on these ladies.
So there were 3 volumes of this book, right? The Art of Love. First one, which teaches the reader how to seduce a woman. The second one then is okay, you've got her. Now, how do you continue to seduce her? Which is very interesting. And then the third one is how for women. So there must have been feedback going, hey, this is all very man based. Can we get the opposite version? So he wrote how a woman can seduce a man. But the 4th volume, which is a separate book, is the most exciting
The
one.
marsupials. Yeah, love it.
Develop a pouch in your front. Remedia Amoris. This is the book of how, if it's unrequited love, do you stop loving a person? What a great idea
that
for
is
a
great.
book.
It's a
Yeah.
terrific
It's
sequel. The
fantastic.
publishers must have been absolutely chuffed.
Yeah.
It's got great advice in it as well, the Remedia. There's join the army,
Yeah.
Oh.
become a lawyer, become a farmer, get a hobby.
How's this supposed to get you out of unrequited love?
Yeah.
I think it's when you're heartbroken, it's how to get over it.
It's distraction.
It's
yeah.
not like my dad gave me some advice once when I was a teenager and I was very heartbroken over a boy who did not love me back. And my dad said, just picture him on the loo.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Good. I can see that going in there.
Well, there is a similar
Yeah,
ish
it
thing.
is.
Well, hang on. Did it work?
No, and I said to Dad, because he said I was in love with Sarah. I can't remember her surname. This girl he was in love with when he was a teenager, and
What a
he said,
shame we
and
can't give her a shout out right now.
Cleveland, Sarah Cleveland.
Oh, thank God. Great. Now we're
Sarah
legally
Cleveland.
secure. Yep.
So I was in love with Sarah Cleveland, and I would picture her on the loo to get me over her. And I said, "Did it work?" And he went, "No." Right.
If anything, I developed a weird fetish that has dogged my life ever since.
Well, okay. Well, Ovid wrote, maybe this would have worked alternatively. And this is about if you're a man and you've had your heart broken by a woman, go and see her unannounced, right, early in the morning.
When she hasn't got her makeup
When
on.
she hasn't got her makeup on, and you'll be
She's
reminded.
got too much dust on her cleavage.
I need a broom to get that off, love.
Yeah, he also the classic kind of like teenage movie techniques, burn all the items that are associated with them. So sit with a fire and throw the letters in, the love letters
No
and
way.
the bits of clothing or whatever has been left over in your house. Do that. But what a great book. What a forward-thinking book.
He had to, yes, there are some ropey bits of it. Maybe it doesn't stand up to a lot of feminism, but he was very pro makeup. Actually, he wrote a whole separate book on why women should wear makeup because there was a lot of pushback in society at the time about how women were overdressing their faces with makeup.
Augustus, back to basics. Let's
Yeah.
take off that thick slap and
Exactly.
just have natural beauty.
Exactly.
And he was like, "No, natural beauty."
Yeah, no. Have you seen their natural faces underneath? And that's also a good read.
Lots of slap dusty bosoms.
He gets quoted a lot as a kind of proto pickup artist.
Yeah.
And there was a brief trend when that sort of
Neil Strauss, The Game.
sort of
Yeah,
grim
the
thing of
game,
pickup
yeah.
artistry was doing a thing. A lot of like proto bros were saying you've got
Yeah.
to read Ovid in much the same way that they were all saying you've got to read Sun Tzu's The Art of War. Like, are you reading that? Are you really? Are you actually reading Marcus Aurelius's Meditations? Are you?
It did actually really remind me of that. I didn't realise people had connected those. It
Right.
reminded me of that game mentality.
But it is, a lot of his advice is quite sort of modern, like when he says how you should befriend the lady's maid.
Yes.
And that's how to get in there.
Oh.
Yes, very clever.
So it is a bit like that, yeah. I mean,
How
he also
modern
does
is that, befriending a lady's maid? What kind of life do you lead, Rosie?
so modern.
That's what you do.
But one of the people who's written loads about this is a woman called Donna Zuckerberg, who is a classicist, and she's written a book called Classics Beyond the Manosphere, all about this. And she is an interesting person. She's the only Zuckerberg sibling not to have become a tech titan.
Wow.
Yeah, she's
wow.
sister of Mark, and there are four Zuckerbergs. And yeah.
Well,
So-
she wrote a book as well as the one that you were talking about called Not All Dead White Men. And the idea was she was talking about how the sort of alt-right of America have really harnessed all the, Roman ideas and so on. And Ovid is very much connected to the Neil Strauss, the game pickup artist movement that's going on. And she wants to keep showing the connection between those two things. And it's so interesting that she is Mark Zuckerberg's sister, because the very first thing that he did was a site called Face Mash, where you got students who went to Harvard University, both women, their pictures, which he hacked off a system, and you ranked who you thought was hotter. That was the original Facebook, basically. Yes. And so she must have been horrified by that and decided to dedicate her life to showing what a misogynistic move that was by her brother.
Yeah, sounds like they have parted ways. Well, so she's saying Ovid was a misogynist, and so are these
She's
guys?
not necessarily. She's sort of saying that, as Andy was saying before, it's that thing of using an old historical idea to give legitimacy to why
we
you're...
can't all blame the fact that men keep befriending my maid on Ovid.
Yeah, because a lot of it does obviously read quite sleazy, but a lot of it doesn't. He says send very eloquent love notes, cry in front of your loved one. I don't recall seeing Andrew Tate saying you've got to be able to cry in front of her. That's not. It is a bit different.
But what's also different, and which Donna Zuckerberg writes about in her book, is that it was quite a lot more dangerous in the times, the advice that he was giving, because when he was saying things like befriend the husband of the person you're fancying, there was death penalties back in the day for things like if you were having a child out of wedlock, if you were, it was dangerous. There would be certain things that you weren't allowed to do that in this day and age you'd get away as sort of just, it's bad manners. But
is that how you think the affair's going to go down, Dan?
Yeah.
That's jolly bad manners.
No, but yeah, so she points out that the risk level was much higher back then, if you were employing these tactics and they worked on certain women in society.
Yeah.
And he paid the price because he suffered relegatio.
He did.
That was the official term for the exile that he was put through.
And he died out there.
Right. Relegatio was the mildest form of exile.
What I want to know is, when he died, was he with somebody? Did he find love? Or did he die in exile alone?
His last word was when, and sadly, we don't know the answer. No, he died very unhappy. The last 10 years, he was writing these Tristiae letters, and it was, his book had been banned from libraries, and he said, look, it's completely awful out here in modern-day Romania. He said, the wine freezes in the jars, and the ice is so thick on the Black Sea, the dolphins can't even jump through the water, really horrible. Poor guy. But he was constantly writing poems to his friends and to the emperor and to his wife, probably in that order, to defend his cause, say, I'm really sorry about all the licentious stuff. I can change, and I will change, and create pity for himself, and it did not work.
That's so sad. It reminds me a bit of, how John Donne used to write lots of sexy poems, and then in his later life he did lots of no, all his poems were no, God, they were all, that was the kind of vibe.
I didn't know he got more like that. I feel like I've read more the sexy stuff.
His early ones are all sexy, and then the later ones are all more self-hating. God forgive me for my sexy past.
God, we all turn into such bores, don't we? It's like Tolstoy. No one ever stays the fun playboy / playgirl.
Yeah, it's very sad.
Bit of a good update on Ovid. I do have a bit of good news about...
So rare you hear that sentence.
Is this breaking news? Has this just come in?
It's recent.
Okay.
Because Ovid's exile was eventually revoked in 2017. When Rome's city council, who were not what they once were, I suspect, voted to repair the serious wrong that he had suffered and say his exile was now officially ended.
Was he like the knight in Indiana Jones 3? Was he allowed to...
He came back. He came back.
Yeah. You decided wisely. Okay, it is time for our final fact of the show, and that is Andy.
My fact is that the largest collection of contemporary South African art in the world is in Nando's.
Which branch?
Every branch. No, I'm joking. The Manchester Salford Keys one. It's nice. Yeah. It's all in there. One. Yeah, and it's big. So there was a terrific piece in The Guardian recently about Nando's collection of modern South African art. Nando's is a chicken restaurant. For anyone who doesn't know, I don't know. We have American listeners. Do you have Nando's? Don't write in.
They do have Nando's, don't they, in America? Should we have
I
the
think
Nando's
Nando's
everywhere?
is global, yeah.
Is it?
But it's the biggest here. I think it's, it's I think it's worth explaining. I've only been to one.
Here is the highest ever peri-peri penetration on the planet, I think, in this country. You've only ever been to one Nando's.
With you guys, in fact, yeah.
Oh, on tour.
Which one was it? Was it the one at Salford?
It was the one at Salford, yeah. And I only went for the art.
Would you like anything, madam? Just a tour of your 70s pieces, please. Yeah. Seriously,
I've bought some
you've
good
only been to
things.
Nando's once in your life?
Yeah, I don't really like dry chicken.
Wow, it is quite dry chicken.
It's dry.
But it says that they're in more than 20 countries, Nando's.
Uh-huh.
I actually thought
Yeah.
it'd be more than that,
yeah.
Yeah.
20's not that much, isn't it, really, in the grand scheme of countries?
Depends on the
190.
countries.
Yeah, if you're only in Tuvalu, Vanuatu.
Yeah. Then you're doing something wrong in your marketing, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they're in the USA, but they've got about 1,200 restaurants, and across those restaurants, they own 32,000 odd pieces of art, and they buy another couple of thousand every year. And it's the main.
So great.
Seems to be the main thing keeping the South African contemporary art market going. Like,
Well, it's really nice.
They really
isn't
support
it?
artists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have a thing called the Creative Block Program where they basically hand out wooden blocks for it to be drawn on. So it's original commissions as well. And they have programs where they look after artists. I don't know what the rest of the business is like.
Sorry, they like send wooden blocks to South Africans and say, draw something on this and send it back to us.
Well, two artists who are on the
Yeah.
scheme, like they run all these schemes for young artists, and they run a thing where it's an apprenticeship program where they take disadvantaged young people who don't have skills and they train them up over 3 years to become mosaicists or ceramicists.
Oh, wow.
It's quite cool, yeah. And
Yeah.
then obviously you get skills. So yeah, so Nando's are doing something quite good. I don't know many other restaurants that
No.
or any other
No.
restaurants that do this. Does Pizza Express have a?
But we do know this about Nando's, you know.
Yeah.
Pizza Express might have the largest collection of statues in the world, but we don't know. They also do a mentorship scheme, which is basically for furniture, lighting designers. They have a lot of this stuff. The only one that I can think of that does a similar kind of scheme is Whole Foods. Globally, in every Whole Foods, they hire someone who is the artist in store. So when you go into a Whole Foods, you might see a lot of different art. You might see a lot of different like paper mache sculptures around the mushrooms. They might have a big mushroom. That's one person who's doing it bespoke for the Whole Foods as part of the payroll.
Really?
Yeah.
And they're always sculptures of the food.
No, like whatever it is, whatever they decide to do as the resident artist of Whole Foods,
Okay,
they
sorry.
get to do.
I thought you meant it was like, in Japan when they show sushi, they have sushi models outside restaurants.
right,
It's not
yeah.
like that. You're like with the carrots and you've got
It'll
a
be
carrot model.
signs, it will be posters, it will be whatever they want to do, but that's their job. They're the Whole Foods
really
artist.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was quite slow on the uptake on that. I was thinking, what are they working behind the counter? It's like, well, let's take an artist and get them
Yeah.
giving out fish.
Give them a proper career. Something that earns them money.
I just want, we're buying this salmon, this broccoli, and I'd like a sketch of me, please,
Yeah.
while you ring it up.
Domino's Pizza.
Do they have corporate art?
Well, they have a really close link to Frank Lloyd Wright, like probably the most famous architects, 20th century American architect, one of them, and had all these utopian visions of what he wanted to do with his architecture. And the founder of Domino's Pizza is this chap called Thomas Monaghan, and he bloody loved Frank Lloyd Wright. It was in the 60s when he founded him, and he was responsible in the 80s for Frank Lloyd Wright's works, like his furnishings and his decorative art, going up in price single-handedly because he just spent millions.
Did Frank design the little table that goes inside the pizza box?
That was
I
everything he
don't
was proudest of.
understand. So what was Frank doing to the pizzas?
So
I think
It was a side job just to fund the architecture.
I don't think Frank gave a shit about pizzas, but I think he was dead by this point. Or
Right. So this is getting more tenuous by the moment.
No, because the whole of Domino's Pizza is like based around Frank Lloyd Wright architecture. So its centre of operations is a place called Domino's Farms. It's World HQ, and the whole building is meant to imitate Frank Lloyd Wright's prairie-style buildings because the founder of Domino's is so obsessed with him. And there's a whole section in it which is a gallery, an exhibition of Frank Lloyd Wright artworks, which he's bought up. He spent more on Frank Lloyd Wright artwork than anyone else in the world.
Rosie, do you collect art? Have you got any pieces in your house?
No, not yet.
Okay.
But
Anyone
I
else?
might from this Frank man.
Again, I don't know if he's still available to buy from. Are you a Nando's fan?
So, like you, I find the chicken a bit dry. Also, is it free range? I don't know if the chicken's free range, is it?
It's really good.
And I get, if I have battery chicken, I get chicken guilt.
Okay. Yeah.
But it is an interesting place in general because, well, it started in 1987.
As did I.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, I feel an affinity with them.
Yeah.
But there is this big thing of the Nando's black card. And I know I'm looking at
Yes.
3 people who've all got one, which means you have free Nando's anytime, any place.
Forever and ever.
Yeah.
My buddy Tom Davis had it. Do you know Big Tom?
Yes.
Yeah, Tom. Yeah, Tom and I used to go almost every day with his black card in
Oh my
Kentish
God,
Town.
you've got to use one of the black cards.
Many times.
And why was he given one? Because the person I know who had one was a radio host
Yeah.
who was cool at the time.
It's just for being famous. I
Tom,
think they're open
Tom
about
wasn't
that.
famous at the time.
How did he get one then?
Tom called up Nando's and he said, I'm interested in the black card. And then he got called up to the Chicken Council and he had to present
Chicken
his
Council.
Yeah, and he had to present his case for why he wanted it.
Who sits on the Chicken Council?
That's we don't know.
Is it
That's like
chickens?
the library. We don't know what's going on.
You can't see it. Are they in chicken suits?
Well, they wanted chicken suits, but they only had gorilla suits at the time. So it was.
Do you know anyone who has the Dishoom dice? Have you heard about the Dishoom dice? So Ishan Akbar has the Dishoom dice, and what it is at the end you throw the dice, and if it lands, if you get 2 6s, then you get to get the whole meal for free.
Really?
No way. And what do you have to do to get the Dishoom dice?
I don't know.
Yes, because that feels like a relatively low-risk financial investment for them. Send a couple of plastic dice out to
Yeah.
some influencers and they have a 1 in 36 chance of getting their meal for free.
But
Okay.
I went and he rolled. And we'd ordered so much food, and we got it all for free, and they were so.
He got 2
No
6s.
way.
I think they were really upset because they looked like they didn't even know.
Oh my god!
I mean, yeah.
Because you can get them weighted. You can get those. I bet that's what
weighted,
I would
yeah,
do.
yeah.
I would go off and have them weighted so that no matter what, they land on 6.
Maybe you can't do that because they're special Dishoom
Well, they
made
must be
dice.
designed
be an
Yeah.
anti-
to look like Dishoom.
yeah.
But if
Yeah.
you pay just a few £1,000s to a dice crafter, he'll be able to make you 2 double 6 every time. But then that'll go on the spreadsheet at Dishoom HQ.
Well, you
Yeah,
they'll
they'll
spot
know.
that.
You tell your
Yeah.
mate, I know the world leading dice. He makes the weighted dices. He does them for people like.
Get out.
Dan, I thought you were just
Wow.
bullshitting then when you were saying with such authority, you can get
No.
any dice you like weighted.
I had drinks with
Wow.
him with the world
You're
leading.
giving away around secrets.
Oh,
Are you
possibly.
supposed to tell us?
We can redact that in the He's very good
Dice are
friends
weighted.
with my friend who's the Loch Ness Monster Hunter, and we had drinks on Loch Ness, and he told us all about the dice and
Wait.
showed us. Anyway, that's an incredible fact about Dishoom.
Yeah, that's terrific.
That's an incredible fact of yours about Tom because Nando's insist that the only rule is they never give their black card to anyone who asks for it. They say it's just if you're famous.
But how
so
wonderful
they're lying.
that before this, I didn't even know there was a chicken
No.
committee. So you think, what are the chicken committee doing the rest of the year?
Yeah, it's wall to wall. Yeah, they're pecking, they're walking.
I was looking at some logo stuff, corporate art logos.
Oh, okay.
Actually, do you guys know / remember? I don't know if any of you are old enough. Rosie, don't know how old you are. You could be 60.
I am
And
60.
If so, you might remember the time when the Starbucks logo was naked.
Oh.
So you know she has hair over her breast now. She used to have tits out.
Oh, naked.
Stop it, did she? I'm going to have to Google this right now.
Yeah, because she's a mermaid, right? Or is she?
Yeah, she's a mermaid, although
Right.
she has 2 tails, so it's quite an unconventional mermaid.
Oh, look, there she is.
She's actually quite unattractive and frumpy.
She's very unattractive. I don't want to judge her.
I'll judge her.
Oh,
This is a
Andy.
15th century drawing of a siren, though, and that was the Starbucks logo.
She looks like a sort
Yeah.
of your drunk uncle at a wedding.
Wow.
Yeah. She does look drunk because she looks like she's saying, I've caught these 2 fish, and doesn't realise she's holding her own lower body.
Oh, that's classic. Yeah. Wow. So for 2 women who are very positive about Mrs. Gaskell, it's not universal
No.
sisterhood. This is not what a feminist looks
Well, I
like.
don't know. They're both in agreement, though. At least there's consistency.
You've just got to go with us.
So
That's what true feminism looks like.
So that was the Starbucks logo, a weird 15th century.
Why did they change it?
Well, it is just an upgrade, isn't it? Yeah, it's a Nordic woodcut. She is, boobs out and bits of tail in each hand. She looks more like she's holding fish now because you can't see the bottom of her tail. So if you look
Right.
at the Starbucks logo, it looks like she's just holding 2 dead fish. Which is
Right.
weird because I don't think they sell anything with
They
fish in it.
don't sell anything fish related.
No,
That
they
is so
do. They do the tuna macchiato. It's lovely. It's really nice.
That's right. So, was it controversial because she agreed to the 1 woodcut, but then they put her on all of the cups and all of the...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
Just to tie together this with The Howling, I didn't spot any artworks on display in Howling 2.
Right.
But it's really hard to use original art in films. Like the world of image rights has tightened up a lot lately.
Oh, okay.
You can't just, if you want to show the Mona Lisa or Girl with the Pearl Earring or whatever, you can't just stick a print in a frame and pretend in the film, because the artistic estates get a bit funny about that, and rightful owners and all of this. So lots of times when they make a film which features art, or they want it to include really famous art, they take weeks and weeks making replicas, and then the estate of the artist insists that the artwork is destroyed, that the filmmakers record and film the destruction of the artwork, and then send them the evidence of the fake artwork being destroyed.
That's so interesting, because you would
So
figure
weird.
Insane.
you'd figure that would go on a memorabilia market as opposed to being passed off
Yeah.
as a.
I don't know what they're worried about. It might be passing off, yeah. There was a film about Basquiat in 1996, and the estate asked for so much money to use Basquiat images that they said, well, we can't make the film. So instead, they just knocked up a load of Basquiat-style artwork, but then they had to have a lawyer look at all of the artworks and say, that's fine, that's too close to actual
Really?
Basquiat, can't use that.
Wow.
So all of that is sort of artist approved. Yeah.
Has any film producer ever experimented when they get that initial rejection with saying, okay, well, instead, we'll draw a load of badly sketched cock and balls, claim that's Basquiat, and see what the estate has to say about that?
I don't think, no.
I think that was a strong position.
You'd be a great
but-
film producer.
yeah.
You'd be like really ballsy.
That doesn't work for the movie. if in the Da Vinci
It's a
Code,
bluff. It's a bluff.
yeah, if in the Da Vinci Code, if the Mona Lisa looked like,
It's like a cock and balls.
You've got to hope that they blink first. Otherwise, you're stuck with a weird film.
Who's going to look more stupid? I don't know.
Okay, that's it. That is all of our facts. Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to get in contact with any of us about the things that we have said over the course of this podcast, we can be found on our various social media accounts. I'm on @Schreiberland on Instagram. Andy,
I'm at Andrew Hunter M on Blue Sky.
are you on social media?
Oh, yes, I am. At Rosie is a Holt on Instagram and various others.
It sounds rude, but it's not.
It's not rude.
It's not rude. Could be.
Just the way I delivered it.
yeah.
And Anna, if they want to get to us as a group,
You can get us on Instagram at no such thing as a fish, or Twitter at no such thing, or podcast at qi.com is the email address.
yeah. And Rosie, if they want to find out anything else about what you're up to, is there anywhere else they should be checking out?
Check out my podcast, Non-Censored, which is very funny.
Well, do check that out. You can also go to our website, nosuchthingasafish.com. All of our previous episodes are up there. There's also links to a live show that we're doing later this year in Sheffield as part of the Crossed Wires Festival. That's going to be really exciting. There's also bits of merchandise, and there is a link to our secret club, Club Fish, where we have bonus episodes that go up all the time. Do check that out. Otherwise, just come back next week. We will be back with another episode. We will see you then. Goodbye.